Welcome back to Atypical Talk. This is a podcast where we have conversations that illuminate the intersection of faith, culture, and the common spaces of our humanity. I'm Abby.
I'm Joel.
And I'm Brooke.
And today we're going to be talking a little bit about therapy, and one movie that I relate to that is Inside Out. And so I wanted to ask you guys, if you were an emotion in Inside Out, what emotion would you be and why?
So Inside Out, the Pixar movie, right?
Yes.
Where the little girl has all these different emotions that are telling their story and sort of fighting and dealing with everything in her head, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So Brooke?
I think for me, joy.
I love that.
At least I hope that I am joyful most of the time.
Yes.
I like to think I'm pretty bubbly and excited about even just little things. So I relate to her in the movie. But also on not my best days, definitely relate to anxiety as well.
I actually am the exact same. I don't think that I am like Joy. I mean, I feel like I can be joyful, but I've had multiple people tell me, they're like, you were just like Joy from the movie. I'm like, is it just because I have a pixie cut and am smiling sometimes? But no, so I've had people tell me that, but anxiety is, I watched that and I was like, oh, that's me. That's actually me. Yeah. It was so good.
It's funny you guys say that about Joy, because like I think Joy, being kind of the main character too, but like the idea of Joy was really complex, and I love the idea of the character arc of Joy, because I think a lot of times we hear Joy and we just relate it to bubbly, or we relate it to like everything's so happy, but in the movie she goes on this journey of experiencing other emotions and dealing with everything and realizing that every emotion has its place. And one thing that I love about Joy, and that I would love to be a part of my life and sort of define my life, would be like that Joy is kind of like defiant, and it doesn't mean that everything's great or perfect, but like even through it all you can see beyond it, and you can see how all emotions matter, and you don't have to push things down, but you can actually let them all play a role in who you are. And you can still be joyful, and you can still experience anger, you can still be joyful and go through grief and pain. So joy doesn't have to be like it is at the very beginning of the movie, just like bubbly, everything's amazing. But joy is something worth fighting for, and I like the idea of defiant joy. So I'd like to be like Joy at the end of her hero's journey, as she's discovered more of it.
Yeah, I like that. So our first topic today, it's a Relevant magazine article titled "Not Everything is Toxic: The Rise and Risk of Therapy Speak." The language of emotional intelligence and mental health has become misused and watered down in everyday life. While the normalization of therapy and the vocabulary of emotional awareness is a positive step, the author argues that these terms are now often used as a shield to avoid difficult conversations and personal responsibility. Phrases like toxic, setting boundaries, and trauma have become catch-all terms to justify cutting people out of our lives rather than doing the hard work of growth and healthy relationship maintenance. Relationship counselor and author Deborah Folletta says the biggest misconception about boundaries is that they're rules for other people. Sometimes people think that boundaries are about telling others what to stop doing. Don't call me at 4 a.m., but that's not a boundary. That's an attempt at control. That shift in focus from changing others to managing yourself is subtle but important. True boundaries aren't demands, they're decisions. Not every challenging person or situation is toxic or a violation of our boundaries. Sometimes the discomfort of working through conflicts and owning our own role in problems is what helps us grow as people. The article emphasizes the need to use this therapeutic language with more care, nuance, and humility, rather than as a way to simply label and avoid the difficult parts of life and relationships. True healing and progress comes from doing the quiet, consistent work, not just from sounding like someone who has it all figured out. So I've seen this become more and more normalized, using therapy speak and kind of losing track of what these words actually mean. So how can we become more aware of when we're using therapy speak in a self-centered way?
In a self-centered way, that's interesting, because I do feel like there has been this shift of nobody talking about emotions and nobody having any kind of understanding of a psychological well-being. And now it is very normalized, and now it is out in the open. And you see the NFL have mental health month, and you see all these different people bringing mental health to the forefront as not something that should be pushed down, but should be brought to the surface, which is really good. I just feel like sometimes the pendulum swings too far, and like the seesaw has way too much weight on one side of it. And now, because we have this awareness of therapy speak and language, and people have gone through therapy, and they're having more of an emotional awareness, those words can be weaponized, and they can be used just in a self-serving, self-centered way, like you said, Abby. And so I think it's really healthy on the whole that we have this awareness. But when we throw out words so flippantly, it's really fascinating how often they just come to serve our situation, serve what we want for our lives. And I think they ultimately don't help us, and they push us away from the life that we really want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In the article, one of the psychologists said, not everyone who challenges you is dangerous. Sometimes the discomfort is what helps you grow. And I thought that was really, really great. I think there can be a misconception in boundaries that it's, for the other person, but really maybe if you take the mirror and look at yourself, boundaries are for you to create, in a situation that might be difficult or uncomfortable for you, you can kind of turn things around and ask yourself, why is this uncomfortable for me?
Yeah. I think, my wife and I, we talk a lot about what we're trying to instill in our children, and from an early age, what are some of those values and muscles that we want to instill in them and have guide them. And one is empathy, and one is looking for other people, not just yourselves, but one that we talk about a lot is grit, and this idea of pushing through hard things. And so, it comes up in so many different ways. Our kids are in public school, so there's going to be years that they have great teachers, and there's going to be some years where just not the best teacher, not the best fit for him. So do we want to just pull him out of that class, or is it actually a good life skill to have a boss, manager, leader who's not great? I think it's a pretty good life skill, because I think it's going to come in handy at some point in your life, and you can't just push the eject button. How do you push through something that makes you scared? How do you push through something that is good for them, and it's a low stakes reality in your mind because you can see the full world, but in their mind it might be everything? How do you encourage them that they're safe and that they can push through it and do a hard thing? I think sometimes people employ therapy speak in a way just to protect them from actually growing and actually developing grit. One of my great fears is that the pendulum swings so far to where people just don't have that muscle to do the hard thing anymore, because they've possibly insulated themselves from anything that is just uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And again, Grace Umbrella, I'm not talking about abusive relationships or dehumanizing experiences, but just the everyday, this is hard or uncomfortable and I need to push through to get something done.
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time focusing. Well, do I just go home and call it for the day, or do I take a walk and I come back and I finish it, or I'm not leaving until this is done? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Those are the kind of things we want to instill. And one of my fears is that when we just weaponize and just cheapen therapy speak, it stops us from having experiences where we need to grow grit. Because I know in my life, just being 38, there's been so many different times that I'm so grateful that my parents normalized me doing something hard and told me that I signed up for it, so you're going to do it anyway, even when I wanted to quit in the middle of it.
Yep.
And I fear that sometimes, definitely not all cases, but sometimes we can call somebody toxic just for showing us accountability and asking us to finish what we started and do what we said we were going to do, in all those different ways. And so I think this is a really helpful corrective lens. Yet don't throw away therapy. Don't throw away what we've learned about emotional intelligence and the importance of boundaries, but let's not weaponize them and cheapen these things to where we don't have grit and perseverance for those everyday, every month, every year kind of things that are just going to suck, that we have to push through.
Yeah. Well, our second topic today, it's a St. Louis News article titled "Zoo Staff Turns Tornado Damage into Food Enrichment for Animals."
I've never seen those words all in one sentence together. That's pretty amazing. Zoo, tornado, food, animals, enrichment.
After tornadoes downed multiple trees at the St. Louis Zoo 2 weeks ago, the zoo staff decided to make the best of the situation. The St. Louis Zoo's nutrition team gathered over 1,000 pounds of leaves from trees and limbs that fell during the tornado that hit St. Louis on May 16th. The zoo said these leaves will be used as snacks and enrichment for the animals throughout the coming months. Immediately following the storms, the zoo shared photos of the fallen trees across the area and closed for the weekend as they cleared paths. One such tree fell on the Mary Ann Lee butterfly wing, damaging the roof and causing staff to need to catch released butterflies, which they shared in a video on social media. No staff or animals were hurt during the storms. I just love this, like, finding a way to make some good out of a disaster.
Yeah.
But what did you guys think of this?
I thought it was so sweet and just really beautiful how the zoo staff could have been really discouraged and kind of sat in their own pity and bitterness about the situation. But instead of doing that, became active and creative in what they could do to be helpful. And so I just thought it was really sweet.
Yeah, I love that you brought up creativity, because I think we have a choice when like tragedy strikes, or what I like to call trivia comes into the picture, things that you weren't expecting or planning for. And I think that it's in those moments when you really aren't prepared and you don't have a set play in front of you that you have an opportunity to be creative, and you have an opportunity to be like, okay, am I just going to like sit and sulk and be like, oh, this is terrible, woe is me? Or is there something that I can do? Is there some good that can come from this? I mean, so core to the story of the scriptures and the Christian story that we're invited to live into is that from the worst things, God uses creative measures to bring beauty and life and light. And I love anytime I see like a through line to that. I'm just like, oh, this is the good stuff. This is the most beautiful stories, is where there's a terrible situation on the surface, but it's not the end of the story, for one. And there can be creativity to bring good things from it. I mean, what is more of that than Jesus's death and his resurrection and life being opened up to all of us? So I love the story. It's classic lemonade from Lemons, and but I love the creativity to let's just use what happened and see what can happen through it.
Yeah. When have you guys seen someone take a terrible situation and find good inside of it?
There was a girl I went to school with. She was a couple years younger than me, and at a very young age, she was diagnosed with cancer. And it was really amazing how she and her family pivoted from this terrible, traumatic news and turned it into a light to share with others. She created a foundation where she was really gifted in art. And so she would create these really sweet art creations to sell. And she would do cards, puzzles, all kinds of things. And she would use all of that money to go towards this foundation that donated money to like help with kids who were diagnosed with cancer. And I just thought that was really beautiful, not just for her and her little, elementary aged self, but for her family too, to support that. And not just dwell on how sad the news is, but all is well. She was in remission and now is an adult and has her own family. So
yeah, that's cool. So for me, my mom has always been someone who is so positive whenever bad things are happening.
Is it annoying? She's so positive when bad things are happening sometimes?
Sometimes, yeah.
She's listening to this and everything too, yeah.
A few years ago, my brother had like really bad shoulder pain, and they took him to the ER and found out that he had a tumor in his chest that was pushing on his heart and lungs. And my mom was so positive through all of that. Like, me and my siblings were terrified, and my mom's just like posting updates on Facebook being like, God is so good. I'm glad that Eli had this shoulder pain so that we could figure out what was going on and it didn't get worse. And like, she was just incredible, and like praising the doctors and nurses that were working with my brother the whole time. And she is just someone who can turn like anything bad into something good. She will find the good in whatever's going on. Yeah,
and trusting that God's in the story no matter what. That's beautiful.
That. Yeah. What about you, Joel?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to my mind is something that's just happening right now, around our church and in our community. It was about 4 weeks ago, and there was a news story that got passed around a bunch and passed around through some of us on the staff about a state program that was helping families that had kids that were receiving free or reduced lunches that was cut. It wasn't actually just cut, it was just ignored, and it was free money that we just didn't sign up for. And I remember like my first emotion, this is just my personality, when I see like failed leadership and this kind of stuff and knowing that people are going to be hurting because of it, I was angry. I was, texting some people and just being like, this is ridiculous. How in the world did we, this all happen with leaders we voted for, all this kind of stuff. But it led quickly to a conversation of like, okay, like instead of us just being angry about it, there is a crisis in our community, and what can we do to be a part of a solution? And that's just a corrective lens that definitely is not natural for me, but I love that it's a part of our culture of our church, is to be like, okay, like this sucks, but what can we do to like be a part of a better story? And so that led to Allison on our team, a couple other people that just attend our church, that work in some nonprofits around town, getting connected and presenting at a meeting in front of a bunch of people, and me connecting with a couple other local churches and their pastors. And we are this week, the first week in June, going to start doing a meal in some of the most affected areas and give a bag of food for 5 or 6 days to go home to families to try to help cover some kind of gap because of a lapse in funding. So that's just on the forefront of my mind, because, it's a terrible situation and it's not right. And we have a choice to sit on our hands and sulk about it and complain about it and wait until the next election to do something about it, or we can respond to a crisis. And so I love that that's something that, we get to be a small part of. And Abby, we'll put in the show notes links if you want to be a part of that. We have ways for you to serve, to give, to serve the meals, to actually like pack the bags that are going to go home for families for 5 or 6 days worth of food. But I'd love to invite you into that. Just another way that we can look at something that's unjust or a tragedy and try to bring beauty and life out of it.
Yeah. And going back to talking about zoos, when you guys go to a zoo, what animal do you most look forward to seeing?
Whatever the boys are running towards is really it right now. Depends on what phase they're in. Thomas, I feel like, had been in a sea creature phase, so it's all about the aquarium right now. And then there's times when the boys were obsessed with cheetahs and how fast cheetahs were, so we would run to the cheetah section too. We've been joking at our house that Thomas, our 4-year-old, is so obsessed with sea creatures. He keeps, like, when Megan and I are talking, or Megan is talking to her mom or somebody else at our house, another adult, he keeps interrupting mid-conversation and going, "Are you guys talking about an aquarium?" out of nowhere. We're like, that's like his sentence right now. He's just always thinking about an aquarium, and it's so funny. So that whatever they're running to, we're going to be there, which is so cute.
I'm an aquarium girly.
Me too. I love the
aquarium. I love the dolphins. I love going to the dolphin show that they do at the Indianapolis Zoo.
Never gets old, does it?
It never does.
No, I love that. And then just any animal that's active. I enjoy going to the zoo and seeing the animals, but if they're up moving around, playing with toys or whatever, that's always my favorite to stop and watch.
You're not running to the sloths. You're not running to the sloths.
No, not always. I mean, they're fun to watch, but it's about 2 minutes before it's like, okay, they're not doing anything.
Yeah. It's kind of their
just
thing.
Hanging out.
It's kind of my thing, not doing anything except a sloth.
Yeah. So, Allison had sent me a video the other day that I thought was really interesting and a fun topic we could talk about. But zoos have prices for their animals, and these prices, they have to have prices for like insurance reasons and trading values. So if like they're trading with another zoo or animal rescue. So I wanted you guys to try to guess what these values of different animals are. So giraffe and hippos are about the same value. So what do you guys think? This will be our starting off.
Well, like, I don't even know the categories.
Yeah. So I'll give you the first one then. It's 60 to 80,000 for giraffes and hippos.
Whoa.
That's their value.
60 to 80 for giraffes and hippos.
Yeah. Okay. So the next one is chimpanzees. Where do you think they're at?
I'm gonna say 45,000.
I'm gonna go 100K.
Yeah, 100 to 150.
I know my chimps.
Okay.
The prices are based on rarity, destructiveness for some reason, and intelligence. Okay. So our next one is gorillas and orangutans.
Oh, I feel like this one's probably really high. I'm going to say 150. 150K.
151K.
250.
I'm Price is Right in you right now. $250,000.
Yeah. Wow.
That's crazy to me. And then a baboon, which is also, around that same.
120.
125.
$500 to $1,000.
No.
The drop is crazy.
Well, 500 to 500 to 1,000.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were going to say 500K.
No, not $500K. $500 to $1,000.
Did not see that coming.
I don't get the huge drop there.
Shaken to the core.
Yep. Okay, these I'm going to split up. Female kangaroo.
100K.
83,000.
Now this is also dropped. It's 25 to 35.
Okay.
But what do you think a male kangaroo?
15. It's not more, is it? 15K is my guess.
Okay. 25,000 is my guess.
$1,000 to $2,000. So much less than a female kangaroo.
Male kangaroos on sale.
Yep.
Wow.
Okay.
They can't make babies.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the
Yeah. I know. It said a
They don't
lot
have
of this
pouches
is
for that stuff.
a lot of this is based on the gender of the animal, but I'd assume most of the time it's the females that's getting sold for more, or has a higher price value. Okay, zebras. This is a wide range on the zebras. It's $3,500 to $10,000. And that is depending on gender and if they're trained. I guess zebras cause the most injuries to zookeepers, so they don't want an untrained zebra. Yeah.
Okay.
That's interesting.
I didn't know that. Yeah. And then the one that is the most expensive animal that a
Elephant.
zoo can have.
Elephant?
You think elephant?
Or, I actually would say something else, but now.
I am going to say... Are these only animals, or can they also be like sea creatures?
These are just like mammals.
Okay.
I'm going tiger. I'm changing my answer to
You're
tiger.
saying tiger. Okay. I'm going to say elephant then.
Okay. It is a panda.
Oh, man.
Because pandas,
Rarity.
you have to have like a contract from China to have a panda at your zoo, and it's $1 million per year.
Yikes.
Yeah. That's crazy to me. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. But I thought,
Expensive for pandas.
Have you ever been to a zoo that had a panda?
I feel like I have, but I can't remember where it was. My family
feel
used to
the
go to
same.
zoos a lot when we were growing up, so I don't know
Interesting.
where I would have seen one. But yeah, that's crazy. They must make a lot of money wherever
Yeah, wow.
those zoos are. Yeah. So our last article today, it is a Voice of San Diego article titled "An Experiment to Clear a Homeless Camp in North County Seems to Be Working." After receiving an $11.4 million state grant, Oceanside and Carlsbad have launched an effort to move hundreds of unsheltered homeless people from encampments into housing. The project is showing promising early results, with more people accepting services and housing than originally projected. A team of city staff, outreach workers, and local nonprofits are providing wraparound services like housing navigation, medical care, and mental health support to engage with the encampment residents. So far, 11 households have moved into supportive housing units, with 16 more set to move in over the next couple weeks. The goal is to move every person living in encampments along the nearly 4-mile shared border between the two cities into housing over the next 3 years. Each client from the encampment gets up to 2 years in supportive housing, where they will receive a rental subsidy based on their income. During those 2 years, clients will work with case managers, counselors, and use other available resources to find stable employment and achieve self-sufficiency. The project is using a unique hands-on approach, with the nonprofit Brilliant Corners working directly in the field to help residents through the process of getting into housing. City officials say the amount of support from various departments and organizations has been incredible, and they want to create a replicable blueprint for addressing homelessness that can be used by other communities. So what did you guys think of this?
I just read this and I'm like, this is such a win-win-win-win across the board.
Yeah.
How are you I'm sorry, I'm just like, how are you against this? Right?
Right.
Like, nobody, I mean, for just public policy, well, I'll get to the theological thing later, but like public policy, like nobody likes having people that are homeless or unhomed, like on the streets or laying around or on benches. Like nobody likes that feeling and that vibe and all that. And then also to help people like have a process to get to self-sufficiency, and to not just hand them something, but to walk with them so they can get to self-sufficiency and change the cycle, end the cycle is just so beautiful and powerful. And It's a great use of public resources that we all pay in taxes for something like this. So I am excited to hear that they're trying to make this replicable for other communities.
Yeah, I agree. I think it sounds like they have really put in the work and the thought of like, how do we do something for these people that's not just, as you said, a hand out, but how can we actually help them with getting themselves somewhere that is going to sustain them. As far as it even said, people with special needs, they're working with caseworkers to kind of work on next steps as to see what resources are available for them to continue to sustain, this housing adjustment for them. So I think it's awesome. I think it's really beautiful also that these different communities are working together, and I love it.
A couple of things I mentioned was, they're helping with these wraparound services like housing navigation, and that's helping them understand the process of having a home and taking care of a home and getting access to a home. It reminds me of what my friend Jeff Newton says often is like, we always like to say, want to teach them to fish, not just to hand them fish, right? But it's this idea of like, they don't have access to the pond. They don't know how to do things yet. So it's helping them navigate that. Medical care. I mean, so much of homelessness has to do with undiagnosed problems or debt from their healthcare crises that led them there. And then also mental health services. They're trying to help with wraparound care there. There's a huge correlation that is documented of the defunding of mental health services and the increase of homelessness in our country because people are sick and they don't have the tools to operate and to have a home and to work the same way. And so when we take those resources away, that's where we see a huge increase in homelessness in our country. And so to meet people where they are and to give them those resources, it's really going to help them move forward. And so I love it so much. This is a great example of lots of different people coming together, seeing a crisis and doing something about it. And not just throwing something down at them, but to help pick them up, which again is just the picture of what God does for each and every one of us. And I love that there are people getting together, I'm sure like-minded in maybe even just a few ways, but it was just enough for them to get together and do this and to serve people in Carlsbad and Oceanside. And I'm excited to hear more about it, and hopefully it can be replicated in a lot of places.
I agree.
Yeah, no, it would have been so much easier to just give them money or give them a place, but
here are the keys. Here are the keys.
There are so many people involved to make all the steps of this process possible, and I think that's just so awesome. So I've seen people online say that programs like this are a waste of money. So what do you say to those people?
Okay. I say that's a bummer, because how can you be sad that these people are going to
but I worked for it. I worked for it myself, Brooke, and they haven't worked for it the way that I've worked for it.
I read through the comments.
He says facetiously.
I read through the comments on this, and most of them were that.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's
which is unfortunate.
It's the same tone in the last presidential administration when there was talk of forgiving college student debt, right? Was like, oh, well, it could free all these people. And then the people that were the most vocal and angry were, well, I didn't get that, and I worked hard to pay this off, or you made that choice to do that, so you don't deserve this. Which I can see how people say that, and grace umbrella with what I'm about to say, but I'm a Christian, and there's a thing called grace. and I am not operating off of fairness, because I think if fairness was running everything, and if it was just you get what you deserve, it's actually bad news for me and maybe for other people too. And anytime that I can sniff out grace and mercy and lifting up somebody who has maybe made a terrible decision, but you know what? They didn't have the safety net that other people had. I mean, so many people are one step away, or one loving family member away from finding themselves in the same situation that these people in Carlsbad are. Yeah. And so I understand where you're coming from. It's just, man, like I'm trying to live my life through the lens of the kingdom of God, not just the kingdom of this earth. And kingdom of this earth is going to be, is going to not be concerned and actually be terrorized by the idea of grace and the idea of helping people that don't deserve it, earn it, which light bulbs go off. I'm like, oh, that's the gospel. Like that's the good stuff. And so I love it. And I think that we pour a lot of our resources into military programs, and we have the biggest military budget in the globe. I think it's 6 times more than the next country behind us. And I'm not going to like go on that, but we spend a lot of money there. You know what I mean? And these are pennies compared to that. And these can help people right here and right now. So what's a waste, you know, when you can actually change the story, and it's going to help your community. You know what I mean? It's going to help the community that you live in, you know, if this is in your community too. So who doesn't want that as well?
I agree. I would challenge people who are having negative things to say about it to maybe take a look at a different perspective. They may have worked really hard to get where they're at, and that's great, but they also don't know the lives that these people who are living in homelessness are coming from. And so I would just challenge people to take a different perspective, and maybe put themselves in somebody else's shoes as well.
Yeah. Like, what would you want for your son, your daughter, if they were on hard times? You know, when it comes close to you in that way, maybe it would change your perspective. And also, like, okay, let's see how it works. Let's see if it actually does do what they want, and then you'll have to argue with the results of it, and you'll have to defend the results of it one way or another. But man, it sounds like there's chaos, and there's being shalom and peace and order brought to the chaos of this issue. And for me, I'm going to celebrate that where I see it, and I want to be a part of those kind of stories.
Well, that's it for this episode of Atypical Talk. If you have any topics or questions, you can send those to atypicaltalkpod@gmail.com. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Atypical Talk Pod. And make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform to get updates when new episodes go live. We hope that these conversations today have helped you think wider, love deeper, and partner with God to bring the up there and down here in your everyday life. Thanks for listening.